up on yourself, or you're feeling like you're getting to that point where you're just so frustrated and ready to give up? Recently I read a fairly common passage in scripture. It's from 1 Corinthians 13, and I'm sure you're familiar with it as well. It says, love never gives up. Love never loses faith. It's always hopeful, endures through every circumstance. And so, of course, you think about that when it comes to relationships. It's a common verse that's read at weddings, and you're not supposed to give up on your loved ones and not to give up on others. And even in my Bible, I have written as a side note to put my name in the place of love, and says Marsha never gives up. Marsha doesn't lose hope, and I invite you to try that as well. But the other thing that I started thinking about in regards to the scripture is, what about giving up on myself? Have I given up on myself out of frustration? Thinking, gosh, here she goes again, and kind of throwing in the towel. And of course, in this space, we talk about faith and fitness, and oftentimes we feel like giving up. And too often it's because we've signed up for a diet or something that is really out of reach, and we're expecting perfection out of ourselves, and, having expectations that God doesn't have for us, expectations that we wouldn't have for other people in our lives. And so I think it's time to take a look here at 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and especially in these verses, and, ask ourselves, are we giving up? Are we giving up on ourselves? And how can we take the love that God has for us and the grace that he gives us and impart a little bit of that on ourselves as well? Especially again, as we, try to live a healthy life, because of course we want to be good stewards of our bodies. We are called to do that. But we're not called to perfection, and we're not called to, not giving ourselves grace. The strict diets, they just leave us feeling deprived. And sometimes, we encounter an exercise plan that, gives us no room for a day off, or, we just feel discouraged and we feel worn out when we get finished. But that's not what love is about. Love is about, yes, encouraging us to, be our best selves. Like this verse, it says, it endures through every circumstance. And so, yes, sometimes it means that, we have to push through something, but it also gives grace. It also gives us room to be who we are. So I encourage you to take a look at 1 Corinthians 13, and especially those verses where it says, love doesn't give up. And so, as we support and encourage and love the people in our lives, take a moment to look in the mirror and say, I'm not going to give up on you. I'm not going to give up on you. I'm not going to expect perfection. I'm going to love you through this. And then just take one day at a time and allow God's love to flow in you and then flow through you. I encourage you to take a look at this devotion on my website. You can visit that. You can find this devotion. I'll put the link in the description below, but also other ones that will just help you integrate your faith and your fitness. Because when we do that, that's when we start living fit and free. And that's when we start walking in the grace of God, and not only applying these things to others, but start applying that to yourself as well.